Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to IndyCar on the, what is it, 15th? Hang on, just double check this again. Sorry, 16th of May. Okay. So I'm Gordon Ross, and the news today is about Theresa May. It seems that her days in number 10 Downing Street are numbered now. All news items that I've seen today across the mainstream media are predicting that Mrs May is entering the dog days of her premiership. She, as you know, is involved in continuing talks with the Labour Party over a cross-party agreement to back Mrs May's agreement that she has already made with the European Union by simply altering the future trade arrangement, the promises that were made for after we've exited the European Union. A commitment, a political statement was basically made about Britain's intentions towards the European Union, and it's been suggested by many people, including the Labour Party, that the way to get the Labour voters or Labour MPs to vote for this bill is to satisfy them that there would be some form of customs union in this statement. In other words, the British government is going to go back to the European Union at the moment, sending their envoys over there to see if this political statement can be revised, since it's not actually part of the agreement per se. It is in fact a non-binding statement, but if it said, or there was a form of words which pleased the Labour Party and said something about a continued customs arrangement or a continued customs union, then they might vote for it. And we know now that Mrs May plans to put the whole thing back to a vote again in the House of Commons as early as next week. The plan appears to be, sorry, not next week, I want to correct that, next month, I beg your pardon, and next month, in June. We've got the elections coming up next week for the European Union. So next month she's hoping to put it back to MPs for a fourth time to see if doing the same thing four times produces a different result from the last three. It's possible, I guess, that they could come up with a form of words. The European Union might agree to it because it's not binding and it's no skin off their nose if they allow the British government to change that statement a little bit, that we might get some kind of cross-party deal between Labour and the Conservatives, which then means that neither of the big two parties in the UK is anti-Brexit. They are both pro-Brexit, and I think we can see that that's the way things are going, and that affects the way that people will vote next week in the European elections. Those of us who wish to remain in Europe cannot vote for the Labour Party or the Tory Party. Maybe the Liberal Democrats, but it's most likely that people are going to vote for the SNP in Scotland or the Green Party, or maybe, at a pinch, the Lib Dems, but only at a stretch. Anyway, to get back to the subject, so Mrs May is putting this deal forward, but it's been said by government spokespersons that there will be no further attempts to push this legislation through. They're going to give up on it after June. Now that tells you that after June, if Mrs May hasn't succeeded in getting her deal through, then she should be going, because she has no more reason to exist as Prime Minister if all of the work that she has done does not meet with the approval of the Commons and indeed the rest of the population of the United Kingdom. So she should, but you know what Mrs May is like? She's like a cockroach. You know, somebody said recently the only things that would survive a nuclear war would be cockroaches and Theresa May. It's possible that she might stay on all the way through until October to try to steer the critically damaged United Kingdom to its final collision with Brexit on the 31st of October. I don't know, but it looks likely that she's going to go. Anyway, hopefully that will be the end of Mrs May and we'll get some new clown in charge, and probably be somebody daft like Boris Johnson with perhaps Nigel Farage as his sidekick, who knows. But whatever happens, it's not going to be good for Scotland. Now, speaking of good, and Scotland brings me to a piece of good news, which has been published in the National today. It's also been published in energy company. So let me start that sentence again. It's been published in an energy producers magazine this month that 75, I think, Scottish renewable energy companies are now exporting all over the world. They're exporting their expertise, they're exporting manufacturing licenses, and they are basically they are the go-to place now for other countries which are having problems decarbonising to look to Scotland for the solutions to their problems. Now, we're talking about wind energy, tidal energy, solar power, gasification of seawater into hydrogen, all kinds of different subjects, including the use of hydrogen fuel cells, the use of hydroelectric systems to store energy, all kinds of things. And Scotland has become the sort of troubleshooter for the globe at the moment. This is excellent news, and this is exactly the kind of business opportunities I've been talking about in the last few days with regards to the climate emergency. Now, the climate emergency that has been declared and accepted by so many governments since Greta Thunberg, the 16-year-old Swedish girl, started her talking tour of Europe, has been remarkable. But just signing something that says there is a climate emergency is just the first step. That's just acknowledging there's a problem. The solutions to the problem, the first thing is to put the brakes on production of carbon dioxide. And if we do that, that at least stops more going into the atmosphere for the time being, or slows down the amount of carbon going into the atmosphere. The second thing is we need to take more biological action to have that carbon reabsorbed into living organisms, and that would be plants, trees, and small creatures that live in the sea, which absorb carbon dioxide from the water, use them to build their shells or their skeletons. And all of that then is taken up into biomass, and when that biomass dies off, it becomes part of the seabed. In the case of plants, the plants absorb CO2 from the atmosphere and exude oxygen as a byproduct. So they basically do the opposite of what human beings do. We can't live without them. So the solutions for all of us, as well as this technological fixing, and each company's exporting their knowledge in how to reduce and decarbonise the power supply industry, is just the first step. But we also have to have people looking at the biology and environmental factors and looking at the best ways of reforesting large areas of the planet which have been completely cleared mostly for cattle herding and cattle farming, which is probably even worse for the environment than the automotive industry, since the methane produced by grazing animals is an even worse greenhouse gas than CO2. It's about, if I remember correctly, it's about 100 times worse in terms of keeping heat in, methane is, than CO2 is. So there are problems all over the place that need to be sorted out. And Scotland is just beginning to do this now, and is beginning to become a specialist in it. And this is exactly the industrial sector that I believe the Scottish Government now needs to pump prime with extra funding by attracting more inward investment into these industries. And also, I hope, when we become independent, being able to raise more revenue for just these kinds of industries. And also, I mean, many people have talked about this in the past, returning things like the national grid to public ownership, and that will reduce the cost of transmission of power. This week it's been shown by the Office for National Statistics, among others, and by Ofgem, the government body which looks at the generation and distribution of power, that the major power companies in Scotland and the rest of the UK are massively profiteering at the moment. The Ofgem people looking at it said that profit margins, healthy profit margins for a power company should be round about 1.25% per year profit margin, and that's still generating billions. The actual figures are 4, 5 or 6 billion pounds per company at the moment. So they are vastly overcharging many people particularly for their electricity and for the transport costs. You may remember the rolling out of the so-called smart meters recently. Well, what you might not know is that smart meters don't reduce the amount of electricity that you use, and they don't reduce the amount of gas that you use. They simply add cost to your bills, because you're having to pay for the smart meters out of the bills that you currently pay for your fuel. So now you're actually paying the gas and the electricity company to build a meter and put it in your house so that you can see how much they're overcharging you. on a second by second basis. Well, okay, maybe it helps you to turn things off when you realise that you're using a lot of power, but it is not reducing your bills. It is making a massive profit for the gas company and for the company that makes the meters. And this is exactly the kind of profiteering that needs to be stopped. This is why I believe that we should, after independence, completely nationalise the entire power generation business in Scotland. Take it all back into public ownership and run it correctly for the benefit of the people. And also, we should maybe take a place like Grangemouth, which is currently owned by Ineos, and use that site to build a massive new hydrogen gas generation plant, which is capable of taking all the renewable energy that we currently cannot use during the daytime, and to store it as hydrogen gas, and then use that hydrogen gas to either fuel generators to power the system up at night when we need it, or sell the gas to car drivers, lorry drivers, to put in hydrogen fuel cell powered vehicles. That way they never need to spend hours charging up. They just simply go to a petrol station and regas their tanks with hydrogen. It's a much quicker way of filling up with energy, and your car is still fully green because it's still electrically powered. The hydrogen just simply passes through a reactor which turns the hydrogen and oxygen back into water, and in the process generates electricity. It's a relatively efficient system, it's very portable, and there's going to be big business in whoever gets their hands on the hydrogen generation of this country, because once we've got a big plant that can do this, then it becomes a goldmine, it becomes a money-making machine for the whole of the country. And this is my vision of the future for Scotland, if you like, that we as a country take back ownership of all these natural resources and perhaps leave the oil in the ground or just pump a bit of it and use it for chemicals. But we take our eye away from the North Sea and we start to invest heavily in being able to store this energy as hydrogen. It's a very portable fuel. It's common. It's one of the most common elements in the universe, and it is one of the most energetic and powerful fuels on the planet. So used in the correct way, the whole country can be decarbonised and not always need to run on batteries. It can run on hydrogen just as well. Anyway, that's about it for today. I just wanted to talk first of all about Mrs May and the fact that it looks like her days are numbered, but it also looks as if the UK's days in Europe are also numbered unless something drastic happens and they cancel Brexit next October. But in the meantime, Scotland mustn't take its eye off the ball. We have a golden opportunity, first of all, to send a message to Europe that we are very pro-Europe, we are not leaving, and secondly, to campaign for independence and the full decarbonisation of the country and the massive investment needed to create the kind of hydrogen infrastructure I'm talking about, and to be able to marshal these renewable energies in a way that allows us to store them and sell them at a time of our choosing. All of this is possible, none of it is science fiction, all of it is current technology, all of it exists already in some form. All we have to do is have a government which is capable of bringing in the investment to rapidly expand it into a massive central industry for the whole country. Anyway, that's it for today. Have a nice day. I'll see you all this evening. I will be, I hope, presenting Scotland at 7 tonight. There should be a show tonight. I said that after last week's show was inadvertently postponed, just simply due to things that were happening in other political parties around the country, particularly in Edinburgh last Thursday. There was a problem. We couldn't get the show out. Tonight we should do, and hopefully I'll be presenting that tonight. Don't know what the subject will be at the moment. I've been told that we're hoping to get an interviewee for tonight. You never know with Scotland at 7. Anyway, hopefully I'll see you tonight. Have a great day. Bye just now.